If you don't know the story of Local 22, stop whatever you're doing right now and lend an ear. Local 22 is a remarkable chapter from North Carolina's history when working people confronted a rigged system, even with the odds stacked against them by economic and political elites wielding racism as a weapon to preserve their grip on power. It's an example worth remembering in dark times like COVID-19 and helps illuminate a path towards a more just society. I'm Patrick McHugh with the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center. Please join us as Bob Korstad tells the story of Local 22 and reflects on its legacy today.
Yeah, I think the story of Local 22 in Winston-Salem is really pretty remarkable. This is a union that was created at R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, also at a number of the independent leaf houses in Winston-Salem. They ultimately helped organize 10,000 mostly Black women in Eastern North Carolina in a separate local working in the leaf houses. Partly it was phenomenal because Reynolds was one of the most anti-union companies in the country, in the South. It was known as the Ford of the South. Ford being the most reluctant, the automobile company that was most anti-union, and Reynolds had that same reputation. And they had fought efforts by the American Federation of Labor to organize tobacco workers in Winston-Salem. They've been doing that since the turn of the 20th century. Tobacco workers have been organized for the most part in other places, in Durham and Louisville and Richmond. But Reynolds was very opposed to unions and very good at playing Black and white workers off against each other. So when the AFL would come in and try to organize white workers, the company would, play the Blacks off against them, where they might promote some Blacks into white jobs, temporarily to let the white workers know that you may think because of Jim Crow and segregation that your jobs are secure and that these are white jobs, but these are our jobs, not your jobs, and we'll put in there whoever we want. And so they had been playing whites and Blacks off against each other for years. The Black workers they'd made efforts to work with white workers in the late 1930s. They'd made efforts on their own. And in the 1941-42, a few organizers from FTA came into the city, started meeting with a small group of people, but they never had, they had 20 or maybe they had 100 people signed up. Maybe they had 20 people who would come to meetings. And then one day in 1943, there was a sit-down strike in one of the stimmeries led by Black women around working conditions, the death of a worker. And over 7 days, they had signed up 7,000 to 8,000 members. The women organizers were walking around. They paid everybody in silver dollars. They called them bow dollars. And they were walking around with their aprons with hundreds and hundreds of dollars, these silver dollars just dragging them down. And they were able to beat back the anti-union efforts of the company, which also included trying to mobilize the Black middle class in Winston-Salem in opposition to the union. Finally got a contract that improved wages, working conditions, all kind of a lot of different things. What was, I think, remarkable about it is that nobody could have predicted that those workers could have ever done something like that. They didn't even think they could do something like that. And it wasn't like this was just a spontaneous strike where something just set everybody off. I mean, this was a strike that required a lot of different a strike and organizing effort that required a lot of different elements. including kind of a long period of social learning in which Black leaders had understood the way they were being played off against whites. And a small number of white people understood that and were willing to join the Union. It took an interesting cadre of worker leaders, many of whom were kind of leaders in their own communities, in their churches, and on their sports teams, in civic clubs. A number of the women in particular had high school and some college education, and for them, the jobs open to them were very limited. So there were a lot of things that came together, and that was part of my book, Civil Rights Unionism, was trying to really understand that. But it's one of those experiences that, I compare it a lot to the kind of fall of apartheid in South Africa. When things start to happen and social change happens, it can happen really overnight, but it requires a lot of stuff to have happened before that, a lot of things to happen, a lot of mobilizations, a lot of losses. And so, one of the lessons of Local 22 for me today is that, as organizers and as people thinking about social change, there's a lot of things that you have to have in your mind, be thinking about the role of culture, the role of, of gender, the way, the leadership styles that different people have, the experiences that people have that make them more or less prone to taking leadership roles or supporting your organization. So it makes you realize it's not just a matter of going out and knocking on doors and getting people to sign up. It's actually, the process of movement building is actually quite sophisticated.